In this video, we're going to be talking about all of the equipment that I've used in order to get these self-portraits, as well as going into the editing process in Lightroom and a little bit in Photoshop to get this result.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Anna. I am a portrait photographer in the Chicagoland area. If you've happened to find this video, most likely is you're currently at home self-quarantining and you have no clients or shoots to look forward to, so you really have a lot of time on your hands and you're not really sure what to do with it. But just because you don't have any clients right now doesn't mean that you still can't take any photos. So I decided to teach everyone how to do some self-portraits just by yourself and possibly with an assistant if you have one available to you. This time you're going to be the subject. So what you want to do is make sure you kind of have an idea in mind of what you would like the photo shoot to be. In my instance, I decided to do a little bit of glam, so I decided to do my hair as well as put on some makeup to boost my confidence up a little bit and really get into the zone of the mood that I was going for. Once you have your makeup and hair done, what I would recommend is start setting up the photo shoot. The best place to do a photo shoot is probably in a corner that doesn't really have that much stuff in it. We happen to have one room in our house that doesn't really have that much furniture yet, so I decided that this would be the perfect place to do my shoot. When you have the location selected, the next thing that you have to do is set up the equipment. What I used today was the Canon 6D with an 85mm lens, along with the Godox 8600 Pro for light, only because the natural sunlight that was coming into that room wasn't enough at that time that I started shooting, as well as a Neewer softbox and a couple of tripods. If you're interested in all the equipment that I use, the description box always has all of the things listed out, so please feel free to check that out. With all of the equipment set up, let's start going behind the scenes.
Now, this is going to be the hard part because you're going to have to manually figure out the distance as well as the focal point. So my recommendation is to always remember where exactly you're sitting, or to have someone come and help figure out where the focus is going to be. With the focus set, just keep taking a couple photos until you get the photo that you like, and then you can begin the editing process. This is the photo that we're going to be editing today, and what we had gotten with the initial shot was something like this. I noticed that I wanted to change up the skin a little bit, and I noticed that there was like this giant clump of hair on the right side that was a little bit knotty, so I want to get rid of that. So what we're going to do is go into the right hand side over here and see that in the light we brought up the exposure just a little bit, only because the photo was pretty bright in general, and I also wanted to bring up the contrast. Now, one of the things that I want to mention is that I am a pretty pale person, so I like to typically have my photos appear a little more cooler and have my skin tone look a little paler, so I brought the temperature down a little bit from this initial photo because it was coming out a little warm, and something that I typically don't do simply because when I take outdoor natural light shots I have a lot of saturation and a lot of vibrance anyway, but since we're in a studio and lights typically tend to bring a lot of light in and not really bring in a lot of color, so what I did is I boosted up the vibrance a lot as well as the saturation to really bring those colors back in from the washed out portion in the beginning. Now, if we go into the right hand side, you see this little band-aid, which is the healing brush, and I got rid of the majority of the blemishes that I didn't want on my face. Some of them will be removed when I do the skin touching later on, but the really big blemishes, such as the ones on my chest as well as on my face, I wanted to get rid of, so it's easier to hide that and bring more of the skin smoothing back in there. So once we're done with the healing brush, we're going to go right below that into the selective edits, and what I had done is I selected all of my skin and went into the right hand side to boost up the exposure a little bit, as well as going into the effects panel and bringing down the clarity and the sharpness. This is essentially a little trick that you can do to have skin smoothing without going into Photoshop. And the other thing that I did was I went into the eyes, and I also had brought up the sharpness as well as brought up the clarity and the exposure to really make them pop. Now, obviously straight out of camera, they looked pretty good in general, but in order to really boost it, have the viewer that they're looking at the photo really pay attention to is the eyes. I really wanted to bring that back up. Now the last thing that I want to add is I did not like the way that my hair was looking. If I could go back while I was looking at these, just brushed my hair out, and it could have saved the process and time during the editing. But a really simple way of fixing this, which is very time consuming, but really the only way to get rid of something like this, is to go into the healing brush and really zoom in and bring all of the background back into the hair. Now this is something that's very time consuming on Lightroom, but the easier way to do it is to just go into Photoshop. So what I would recommend is to just go into Photoshop, use the healing brush, and really get rid of all of those little hairs.
One tip that I would have in the future if I was doing this photo shoot again is if you don't have an assistant this round, I would highly recommend having an assistant the second time, only because it really cuts down the amount of time that you have to take to focus and to also figure out what looks good and what doesn't. Another thing that I want to add about having an assistant is that it really gives you a second opinion that you haven't had this time around. So when you're doing photos of yourself, you're very critical, and this can sometimes be very discouraging when you're trying to take photos of yourself. So if you have an assistant, this can also be an encouragement booster. You can have someone really hyping you up and making sure that you look the best that you can look. The last thing that I want to add as an improvement for next time is to just set up a lot of time that you're going to be doing this shoot. Remember that you have to get ready, you have to select the outfit, you have to select the location, and you have to set up all of the equipment. So this can take a couple hours. So my best advice for you is to just kind of think of this as like a pampering day where you're really just doing everything for yourself. And the best thing to do is to just take it as slow as you can, or else you'll get frustrated and end up just giving up. And that concludes the end of this video. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get notified every time I post a new video. I also post videos about my travels, so please feel free to check those out as well. And don't forget to follow me on all of my social medias. They will be listed down in the description box below.